transfer over to say goodbye to Lieutenant Jay Shirey, because I think we're probably just doing a seamless transition here.
Sure.
Yep. Okay. So Beth and I got to meet at the Coast Guard Academy in our previous assignments. I think the first time I really got to know her was when she applied for the permanent commission teaching staff position, and I happened to sit on that board, and I got to see what she was really like. And she was a phenomenal teacher, and I think that role that she played there is also a similar role that she played here as you came in, and you just have this patience about you. And if I learned one thing from the product line, it's that you have to persevere. You got to be patient, and Beth is definitely that. When she came in 2017, ICAM was up and running essentially. It wasn't nearly as far along as it is now 3 years later, but it was already on its way, and you came in with some new ideas. But back to ICAM a little bit. ICAM required a transition to sustainment. So we got all this great information with Kathy and the rest of your group that I know you'll praise in your comments, but you have all this data and you have nowhere to put it. You have no way of sustaining it and making it useful for those people in the future. And so I think what you brought to the team was a plan to help us along that way. And as we've learned during COVID, IT necessarily isn't really helpful when it comes, and Commander Para isn't here yet, so I can say this without feeling ashamed of it, but they're not always extremely helpful, and it takes a lot of patience to get there, and you've had that. The Arc Flash initiative, the electrical systems, a lot of what I know that has been put into your OER that is really probably something that you should stand tall and think that you've had a lasting contribution on, is you've made it safer for the Coast Guard. And it's really cool that we're going to talk about Jay afterward, because you guys came into the product line at the same time, and a lot of these initiatives came out from the two of you and the team that you served with. But it's really about making the workplace safer for not only our electricians, but our operators that have well systems and water systems. And so it's pretty cool. Beth's a collaborator, and I think this is part of that teaching background, and it has a lot to do with teamwork. Beth was the chair for our LDAC. For those of you that haven't been here that long, that's your Leadership Diversity Advisory Council, and she chaired that with, you guys, yeah, with Dan. There he is, Dan in the back right in front of me, with Dan, and you're leaving this unit a better place than you found it, and I think that's pretty awesome. You're really good at building support, Beth. So Beth would have these great ideas, and before she would kind of throw them at me, she would get like an army of people around the office to essentially say that this was a great idea, and I would be on the outside if I didn't agree with it. And I found that she didn't just do that with me, she does that at the Silk too. Like, you would go to Fred, you'd build your little army, and then you'd walk through the door and you'd have all this support behind you so that you felt like you couldn't say no. And then lastly, Beth is extremely innovative. A lot of the changes that you saw at the Silk regarding product line all came from CEU Providence, and you and your team, and how you led them, and how you brought that. And it speaks again to building that army. When you have a great idea, you find a way of getting it put in. One of the biggest one that's a huge cost, time saving is combining the annual plan, the AMP with the review, the AMPER, and creating that so that you're consolidating down two worlds of work into a single one. And so I think that that's a lasting tribute to you. Last thing I'm going to say about Beth before we send her off to Sector Boston is that when you meet Beth and you start to get to know her and you start to learn what she's about and the team that she builds around her, it just kind of oozes excellence. And you just can see potential in somebody that you know is in some way going to make a huge difference. Maybe not entirely just in the Coast Guard, but somewhere in life. And you're that person for me, especially here. I know you are going places. You can just feel it. You don't have to see anything. Just meeting you, learning about you, and watching you work over the last 2 years has been a real honor. So I'm really happy I had that opportunity. So you're heading off to Sector Boston, where you're going to be one of our customers. You're going to kind of have the inside scoop. You're going to know all of our secrets. I ask you not to abuse that, even though I'll be gone. So you can call Mike and tell him what you need. Yeah, who? But so I think it's really cool. You're still going to be inside the family and not too far away, just a stone's throw. And I hopefully will cross paths with you when I'm there myself. So, okay. With that, we have an award to read.
So far left, sir, for you.
Thank you.
Attention to award.
Go for it.
This is to certify that the Commandant of the United States Coast Guard has awarded the Coast Guard Commendation Medal to Lieutenant Commander Elizabeth G. Nakagawa, United States Coast Guard, for outstanding achievement from June 2017 to July 2020. Citation to accompany the award of the Coast Guard Commendation Medal, Gold Star in lieu of a second, to Lieutenant Commander Elizabeth G. Nakagawa, United States Coast Guard. Lieutenant Commander Nakagawa is cited for outstanding achievement while serving as the Mission Support Product Line Branch Chief at Civil Engineering Unit Providence from June 2017 to July 2020. Demonstrating exceptional leadership and technical competence, she secured critical maintenance and repair funding for a $5 billion civil works, industrial, and base services portfolio, yielding over $33 million in funding from the National Priorities Board. In response to the Flint water crisis, she led a vital assessment of 64 high-risk sites to ensure acceptable water quality for remote service members and their families. She dramatically reduced arc flash hazards and risks to Coast Guard electricians by creating maintenance procedures for medium and high voltage equipment. Displaying commendable initiative and unrelenting persistence, she spearheaded the systematic recalculation of utility infrastructure values that increased the asset value by $300 million and reduced the need for costly outside appraisals. Through the inventory condition assessment and mapping initiative, she identified and evaluated thousands of feet of buried utilities and developed tools to prevent and respond to utility casualties. As the chairwoman of the Leadership and Diversity Advisory Council, she organized numerous guest speakers and events, presided sage advice to the command, and fostered an inclusive and diverse culture. Lieutenant Commander Nakagawa's dedication, judgment, and devotion to duty are most heartily commended and are in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Coast Guard. Signed, Captain Wade Gazelle, Commander, Shore Infrastructure Logistics Center.
We can shake hands. It doesn't get any less awkward the more times you do it. But no, I think that speaks a lot to the accomplishments that you have, the team that you've built. I know that they'll be sad to see you go. But you won't be too far. And I hope if there's any, you got to stay in the civil engineering program and come back to us when you're done with your tour in Boston. Think so?
Sure, yeah. Thanks, sir, Captain. So I started here 3 years ago. Beth and I showed up about 1 month apart. One of my biggest regrets for my tour here is not getting to know Beth a little bit better than I did that first year. Because as the CEO pointed out, Captain Van already said, she's an amazing person, destined to do absolutely incredible things, both inside the Coast Guard and outside the Coast Guard. I know this has been a challenging tour for Beth, but I think it's also been a good tour. I think she's learned a lot about the Coast Guard and management and the civil engineering program, and she's also added a daughter to her family over this tour. And I know that I've gained a friend working with you for at least the last 3 years. So that's something that I'll have with me for the rest of my career. And I look forward to working with you again, hopefully either while you're at Sector Boston or elsewhere. And I definitely look forward to your change of command when you relieve someone here at CEU Providence, since you don't leave District 1 as the commanding officer. Yeah, I look forward to you doing amazing things both here and outside the Coast Guard. Thanks. Yes.
It is your turn.
Thank you.
Take off your mask.
Oh, I can.
You can. We do have one.
Oh.
We
Did we
do
give
have
you
one.
this first?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and do this.
I did sign my own. So
Did you really?
good job.
Good job yourself. All right, this is Warwick Nick Lighthouse.
Thank you.
Congratulations. You want me to go down? You want to hold it?
I guess there's a lot of white spots. Space up there this way. Can I talk now?
Yes.
But thank you for the remarks. Really appreciate it. And I don't know if it's because there's 10 people, right, that have departed, or all the gold that's there between you guys. Now you guys always have really great remarks, and appreciate it. So 3 years ago, if you can hear me, when I came here, I didn't know what a product line branch chief did. Liam's shaking his head about it. And I probably, maybe some of you guys don't know, but the product lines have been, it's been an eye-opening experience for me. The depth of knowledge in the product lines and the vast reach of them is really, really impactful when you sit back and look at it. I mean, everything in this award was not me, it was Kathy and all the asset line managers that are working over there. And so it's really impactful when you think about sitting here in Warwick, Rhode Island, or at home, right, as we do these days, to think about that we can recapitalize a water line in Air Station Barbara's Point, complete with a field trip sometimes, right, or the fire station facility in Kodiak, Alaska. You know, recently Tim has figured out how to be an electrical engineer, and gotten into the supply, where he's figured out the Russell Stoll receptacles and worked with the Coast Guard yard to ship these receptacles across the Coast Guard all the way to Guam and nearby at Woods Hole. That if he hadn't figured that out, there would be ships without shore power for about 9 months or so. But instead, it took about a week. So everything here has been really eye-opening for me and impactful. And of course, ICAM, Kathy's brainchild, ICAM. And so we all know Kathy's an electrical expert, but in figuring out how to do ICAM, she's had to be a SAM expert, right? A GIS expert, an IT expert, maybe a drone pilot at some point in time. And that program has been really successful. It's our flagship, you know, mission support product line program for a reason. And we have FEs calling all the time saying they use it on a daily basis. And now it's rewarding because Liam got to use it, and now he gets to spearhead the program. And we also have designers and planners asking for all of the ICAM designs and to build out our reconstitution efforts for all these big plans. So product line has been extremely impactful, and I've learned so much over my tour from Kathy, from all the asset line managers, all the JOs have gone through. So thank you for that. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Jean also, who I don't know if she's online, but and the contracting staff. Product line initiatives are not easy to contract, and so every time that I asked Jean if she could help me, she usually laughed at me and then told me exactly how we could do it so that we could actually award some of these really cool initiatives. So unless she was able to really teach me how to do some of this, we probably would have only have a quarter or so of the initiatives that we got through. So really thankful to her staff. And then of course the command that you guys have always been my sounding board, and I appreciate all the support. I think the fact that product lines were one of your priorities shows and made this product line very impactful. So thank you for that. And for everyone else at CEU Providence, when our paths crossed before, whether it's personally or professionally, I've enjoyed. It's a great group of professionals, so I've enjoyed working with all of you. I really enjoy that I'm going to be your customer soon, so feel free to put Sector Boston projects right to the top of your list. That'll be helpful for me, so thank you. And of course, thanks to my family who's online and on mute because they're New Yorkers that aren't very polite sometimes. I love you guys. All right, that's all. Thank you. And now Jay is going to say something probably. Because
It is.
you probably have a quote.
All right, we're Beth. One more.
Beth, we have a couple things from product line that we'd like to give to you. And I don't know if I need to be on the camera, but anyway, Kathy LeBron manager. First of all, I just want to say how much I really appreciate all of your leadership and guidance in the product line and with my initiatives, and how you took them and just your ideas and your thinking outside the box to bring what some of my ideas and just making them happen. And you are a doer and getting the JOs. I know that Jordan did some really great things with PRV, putting that across the line, as well as fire station and that gap analysis and many other things that we have. But one of the most, so thank you for all of that, along with all of the juggling, all of her, family life and raising children, having babies. And so I greatly appreciate that as a female in the STEM world. So thank you for carrying that on. So a couple things. One, to remind you, because one of the things that people ask is, what is product line? So in order to be able to share that, as well as to give yourself a constant reminder, we put together a little plaque, sort of, and to remind you of all the things that you touched, initiated, completed, and to describe product line. And of course, this is in true military fashion with all the acronyms as the alphabet soup. So you can kind of point to this when others ask you what is product line, and also includes your your collateral. This is another item, real quick, is a little reminder of something from Rhode Island. So it's a little ornament for, that is this is Point Judith, little Point Judith lighthouse. And then just a little something for you, not for the kids or Matt, but for you. Hopefully you'll have this for yourself. So anyway, yay! My tissue for my tears. Thank you. Thank you all. All right.
Yeah, you're up.
All right, Jay, front and center, man.
Over here. Is it still cooking away?
You doing all right?
We're good.
All right. Transition over. It's a tough act to follow. Get your work cut out for you, Jay.
Yes, sir.
So this is the last goodbye that I have to give. It's been exhausting. It's like 7 or 8 in a row. It really stink to be the XO and have to be the one to stay here. Everyone leaves.
That was my plan.
Yeah. All right, Jay. Jay came to the product line, like I mentioned with Beth, 2017. Jay did 3 jobs at CEU inside of 3 years, which I think talks to your versatility. But in the product line, like I mentioned with Beth, you guys tackled some pretty amazing initiatives. Again, like I said with Beth, you were instrumental in getting Arc Flash going, getting the water gap analysis, a lot of these things to benefit our workforce. And that's why they carry so much weight when we talk about what we do and what the impact of the product line is. Then we moved you over, you became a construction project manager. Some of the jobs, I was just talking to the TD, some of the jobs that you had, a lot of them were in New York and Long Island. Very high profile jobs, big jobs. The HVAC project, you had to take over a project from Josh Smolowitz. Those of us that know him personally know what a big deal that was to take over. One from the person, Josh. Second was the job itself, long-standing, huge job, very invasive in the sector. And then it's that sector of New York, so you're dealing with a very high op-tempo unit. Same thing is with the fire suppression system, and getting that across, well, mostly across the finish line. I mean, we're like 99.9% the way there, thankfully. It's no longer trench warfare in New York. The HVAC project and the geothermal wells, one of the Coast Guard's first of its kind. Station Jones Beach, I know you took that over and then you're passing it on. But big projects, and I think that speaks a lot to your capability, and maybe a big reason why you're heading down to Puerto Rico. those projects are nothing compared to what you're going to tackle here in the next few years. And we asked you to be the FAM, the lead FAM, and most folks at the unit know that I think very highly of the FAM. I think that's the face of our unit to everybody, and there's really 4 or 5 of you that are those folks, and typically the lead FAM role is somebody that we want that is knowledgeable, that's a good communicator, that's going to respond really well, quickly, and appropriately to all of our commanders, because we're in the business of providing support to those that are the operational and at the tip of the spear. And you did an exceptional job at that. You led, so what did you do? We helped transition to a 2-year POP board under you as the lead FAM. You had the largest pull of CPOP money, you and the 5 FAMs. $19.2 million in FY22 funds are going to come to the 1st district. Just on a scale, that's 32% of the money that they handed out is coming to the 1st district, in large order because of the work that you and Charlotte and Mike and Zach and Dave Cass put into it. But your leadership in that FAM role helped us get there. You put on an EPO-EO conference that, for the first of its time, was based on organizational level maintenance. And that's elongating the service life of our assets, and that makes our dollars at the depot level side go a lot further. And huge impact in the 1st district. We increased preventative maintenance, you might hear it in your ward, preventative maintenance by 200% by doing that. You and Bill responded to a fire. I don't think Bill's here, but you responded to a fire in New York after 8 families were forced out. Catastrophic fire at building 442, one of the housing units there in Fort Wadsworth, and assessed it. We put in the call, you're in the car that night, you're on scene the next day. Amazing responsiveness. He's the UAS guy, one of a handful of pilots who are able to train other pilots. DAT response, you did that. Coast Guard Academy AIM, you're the SAME secretary. So what? All these things, Jay's got his not just hands in, but he's in a leadership role. He's really taking it on and putting it on his back and carrying it forward. But what I found out a couple weeks ago was you're really not well employed enough. Because I constantly, on these Friday morning, we'll have coffee, and he brings up all these readings that he's done, and he's doing these deep dives. And obviously we just didn't keep you busy enough, despite all these things that you were not just doing, but leading in. And you're an extremely well-read guy. I don't know how you find the time. Maybe you just don't sleep, but you go deep into things. The one that we seem to be talking about a lot is Eaton's Neck, and who really owns Eaton's Neck. And there's a lot of philosophies about it. I have no doubt that someday you're going to solve that. Maybe you'll be in my chair as the CEO of CEU Providence, and you'll start figuring all that stuff out. I got this from the XO because we were just handed Jay his OER, and the first draft included machine learning and neural networks. And they're not in there because I have no idea what either of them are, and I'm going to MIT. There's a problem there. All right. So Jay's off. He's taking his talents down to Puerto Rico. Okay. He's going to need some sunscreen. So Kim's in charge of that. Okay. I think the estimated amount, my last look at the amount of money from the hurricane supplementals that's going to Puerto Rico is north of $350 million. And I know you're going to be assigned to the base, but you're going to have your fingers in a lot of how that island is reconstructed and rebuilt. And that's a really cool opportunity. I'm glad you raised your hand for that. I think it's going to serve you well, not just in the Coast Guard and your career in the Coast Guard, but outside. Having that kind of dollar figure and having the opportunity to manage construction contracts of that magnitude is really, really cool. And so you've got enormous potential in the Coast Guard, Jay. We've got the highest hopes for you. We just really would be let down if you don't fulfill those. Okay? No pressure, okay? All right, we've got an award to.
Attention to award. This is to certify that the Commandant of the United States Coast Guard has awarded the Coast Guard Commendation Medal to Lieutenant J.M. Shirey, United States Coast Guard, for outstanding achievement from July 2017 to July 2020. Citation to accompany the award of the Coast Guard Commendation Medal, Gold Star in lieu of a second, to Lieutenant J.M. Shirey, United States Coast Guard. Lieutenant Shirey is cited for outstanding achievement while serving as an asset line manager and construction project manager at Civil Engineering Unit Providence from July 2017 to July 2020. Demonstrating exceptional competence and fortitude, he led impactful nationwide product line initiatives to reduce arc flash hazards to Coast Guard electricians and ensure safe drinking water for remotely located members and their families. He expertly managed 13 construction projects valued at $10 million, repairing Sector New York's unaccompanied personal housing, Detachment Sandy Hook's fueling system, and multiple stations on Long Island. As lead facility asset manager, he orchestrated the first organizational level maintenance workshop, resulting in 200% improvement in timely preventative maintenance across the 1st District. His technical acumen was instrumental in the response to Fort Wadsworth's catastrophic family housing fire and multiple facility casualties, including the New York Battery Pier. One of only 4 unmanned aircraft system pilot instructors, he trained over 50 pilots in the use of this game-changing technology, which has been used in response efforts during the 2018 and 2019 hurricane seasons, including Hurricane Irma, where he served as a damage assessment team leader. His efforts directly contributed to the Coast Guard's receipt of a historic $718 million supplemental funding request. Lieutenant Shirey's dedication, judgment, and devotion to duty are most heartily commended and are in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Coast Guard. Signed, for the Commandant, T. Wade Gazelle, Captain, United States Coast Guard, Commander, Shore Infrastructure Logistics Center.
So you can see that award wrote itself. I mean, it really did. You've done so much. When I say you've left your stamp on the 1st District, you truly have. I know that this isn't $300 million or whatever worth of work that you're going to see in the next few years, but it's truly impactful to those that we serve in the 1st District. So congratulations, Jay. It's been a pleasure working with you. Think so, TD? Any words?
I'll be brief, kind of brief. Thanks, Captain. Jay, it's been an absolute honor working with you. I think you are one of the most inquisitive officers that I've ever worked with. We talk about lifelong learning a lot in the officer community as an attribute that officers should seek to have. And Jay stands out to me as a person who embodies that. I've learned a lot from you. I love the amount that you read. I wish I had the time to read like you do. So instead, I just ask you about the books you're reading. You're like my clip notes, and I'm going to lose that here. So somebody else needs to pick up where Jay left off to keep me informed. I'll miss exchanging podcasts with you. Maybe we'll do that from afar. You've been a really awesome lieutenant to work with, and I think you're exactly what a lieutenant in the Coast Guard should be. So thanks for that. TD, do you have anything more? Or? Sure. Wear your sunblock.
All right. I think we got one more thing, right?
We do, sir.
We do?
We do. I think we should ask Kim to join us.
Yeah,
maybe.
Kim, can you come up here? All right. To all who see these presents greetings, know ye that reposing special trust and confidence in patriotism, valor, fidelity, and abilities of J.M. Shirey, I do frock this officer to the rank of Lieutenant Commander, United States Coast Guard, to rank as such from the 8th day of July in the year 2020. This officer will therefore carefully and diligently discharge the duties of the office to which frocked by doing and performing all manner of things thereunto belonging. And I do strictly charge and require those officers and other personnel of lesser rank to render such obedience as is due an officer of this rank and position. And this officer is to observe and follow such orders and directions from time to time may be given by me or other superior officers acting in accordance with the laws of the United States of America for the Commandant. M.T. Brown, Captain, U.S. Coast Guard Chief, Officer, Personnel Management, Coast Guard Personnel Service Center. Congratulations, Lieutenant Commander Shirey. case you didn't know, he had no idea I was coming. In order to make it official, put that down. Let's reaffirm your oath, Lieutenant Commander Shirey. Please repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Jay Shirey,
Will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
That I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same,
to the same,
and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States
and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States
and the orders of the officers to which I am appointed.
and the orders of the officers to which I am appointed.
I will well and faithfully discharge the duties
I will well and faithfully discharge the duties
of the office upon which I am about to enter.
upon the office of which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. All right, with that, the floor is yours.
Am I allowed to take
Yeah, go for it. I'll stand back here.
Well, thank you. I'm not someone that's very good off the cuff, so instead I wrote a letter this morning actually. So, dearest, CEU, I woke up too early this morning. The deflating air mattress in the too small apartment is beating what used to be a supernatural ability to sleep anywhere. To avoid thinking about how Kim and I are going to fit a weed whacker, a fire pit, and all sorts of all non-city things into another small apartment, I thought of here and now. I thought about process, about how a phone call becomes a plan, about how a plan becomes a drawing, about how a drawing is included in a permit, how that permit is immediately approved by Suffolk County, how that approval enables an individual to obligate on behalf of 330 million people, how that, and how that obligation is then taken by an altruistic organization that gleefully accomplishes everything that is written down for them and always asks what they can do to help free of charge. I may have begun to fall asleep at that point. I also thought of all the ways process goes right and the ways it can go horribly wrong. The PMDSs, the PRs, the CSTOs, the RDTOs, the TCTOs, the memos, the thousands of hours and hundreds of questions that are baked into the process. And then I thought about the best part of the process. The Daves, the Mikes, the Charlottes, the Tammys, the Cindys, the JOs, the branch chiefs, the command, all those past and present that have enabled me to explain to anyone and everyone without irony, sarcasm, or even hesitation that CEU Providence has been my favorite unit in the Coast Guard. So, process, thank you for the journey. Thank you for the advice. Thank you for the knowledge. Thank you for the mentorship, the leadership, the challenges, the eggs, Bill, if you're out there, the encouragement, the direction, the feedback, the mustaches and the nails. Thank you for the approvals and the notification of a haircut gone wrong. And the dents and scratches in a brand new car. I'm never going to trust the process, but I will always enjoy it. Thank you. What's that?
I don't know who you have online. I don't know if you want to say.
I don't know
Or
that
do you want to just leave it?
there's anybody.
It's been a pleasure, Jay and Beth. It is. It's tough to say goodbye, as you well know. Yeah. Congratulations on your promotion. Congratulations on both of your tours. You guys have been amazing. Again, Warwick Nick Light. I don't know if you signed your own. If that's with Beth. Maybe she signed yours too. Maybe she didn't.
I signed her, but I don't think I signed this.
All right. Congratulations. I don't know if anyone else wants to say anything, but I'll let them say it in their own way. All right. Thanks, guys. Notification of a haircut gone bad.
Thank you for everyone for joining us. We're going to sign off here in Warwick. Thanks for coming out, and have a great day.